Let's do
Hey,
it.
how's it going, everyone? It's really awesome today to have my friend Sara Simeone on the Building a Better World podcast. It's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Hrish. Thank you so much, everyone, for having me here today. It's such a pleasure to meet you finally.
Yeah, no, it's thanks again. I'm very excited to, learn more about your work, and you have such a dynamic background of things that you've worked on, and would love to hear more about all of that and kind of what got you on to where you are now. Maybe as a starter, you can maybe start by telling us a little bit about kind of your background and your story and, kind of what
Sure.
got you to this point.
Absolutely, yeah. I'd be happy to do it. I mean, I always talk about my story. Well, I mean, I actually started my career in a very corporate background. I mean, corporate companies like WPP, and then I moved to actually Vistaprint. That was another, big American company opening their offices in Europe. And then after that, I moved to Sweden, where I actually worked for a big company, a cosmetic company, and I opened their e-commerce and Web 2 department, let's call it now.
Mhm.
And after that, I moved back to the UK, where I actually worked for Dan Suigis, and there I was actually responsible for data strategies and working with big brands to actually put together strategies for their businesses, for their programmatic advertising. And that was actually quite the beginning, let's say, of my interest towards blockchain. And that was actually 2016, sorry, because I was in the meantime, I was working full time, but I was studying part time at the Manchester Metropolitan University.
Mhm.
And that's the reason why I'm in Manchester today, by the way.
Nice. I used to live there for a
Yeah.
bit.
Oh, really? Well, I mean, then you must know this. That you must know and love this city.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's a beautiful city, and it's growing every day. And back in 2016, I was actually doing a lot of research around machine learning and blockchain. I was very interested in, understanding how we can actually really handle data in a different way and become owners of our data. And that was actually the title of my dissertation, and that was 2018: How Machine Learning and Blockchain Will Have an Impact on the Future of Digital Marketing and Data. And that research, basically, that was 2018. So it really, opened a lot of doors for me, especially Crypto Valley. It was the beginning of Crypto Valley. I joined the CV Labs at the time as one of their mentors. And then from there, I just basically forged beautiful friendships and collaborations. And now I'm basically co-chair of the startup working group at Crypto Valley Association. And I'm also keeping my foot in Sweden at the same time, because I'm also teaching at the Media Institute Blockchain for Business and Law to amazing students that are doing starting to become blockchain developers. So yes, I've got a lot of different hats.
Wow, that is a real comprehensive set of things that you're working on. Yeah, I definitely understand. Manchester, and I lived in Whitworth Park on Oxford Road
Oh, I
long
love
ago.
it.
Yeah, so love that place. It's very interesting. And was in Stockholm last summer, so definitely
Nice.
would love to talk more about what you're doing in Sweden in general.
Yeah.
I think that's great. And tell me more about Niftyz .io. Kind of what
Yes.
led you to founding that, and what's the goals and aims of your company?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we actually started at the beginning with a company called Digital Oracles, and that was our first project. And that was actually because I was mentoring so many startups. We wanted to create a more meritocratic way for companies to actually get selected by investors. And whilst we were doing all of that research and we were building that platform is still live, by the way, it's still active. We realized that there was a feature of that platform that was loved so much by our user. And that was actually the unlocking features of pitch decks and pitch documents in general. So we thought, like, with Sebastiano Cataldo is my co-founder, is my, my own, like, my best friend, my guru, my co-founder, and CTO of Niftyz.io as well. So I have to do a big shout out for him, because without him, we wouldn't be here, today. So celebrating, actually, and I will tell you more about this later. But so what happened basically is that we saw that there was this this feature, and so we decided, why don't we just transform all of these documents and these activities into NFTs? And so what basically happened is, like, that was the beginning of Niftyz. We thought, okay, the first use case was our own use case. As startuppers, we share a lot of information with people, and then this information gets shared with other people, and you don't know what happens. And you don't know if this information is taken for, good reasons, or, other types of reasons. And, so what we decided basically was to tokenize our pitch deck. And that was actually the first NFT we created, tokenize our pitch deck and also our video demos and all sorts of things. And of course, Seba and I are so much into Web3 that we thought, okay, let's build a true Web3 platform. We are so, we're very focused on this. Like, we are so into, like, decentralization of, everything really, power, and of course, data and all of that. And we said, okay, let's build this. And so we did. And so we had this idea, and then in January last year, we were selected by Brink and Animoca Brands to join their accelerator called Launchpad Luna, that now has become ZK Advancer. And from there, basically, we started our journey, and we launched our premium platform, basically in November last year. And today we're celebrating because we just launched our new light version of the platform. And I'm sure I will tell you more about that later on anyway.
Yeah, would love to hear about that. Can you tell me more about it? And just kind of what are the, just kind of a high level, as you're thinking about light, what are the goals, and kind of how do you position yourself in the market? And we're very, again, close to Animoca and the team there. They're doing amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned before, right? Our goal has always been to educate, inspire people, and democratize access to Web3. So that was basically, like, these are the pillars, the fundamental pillars for us where we started. And we know that NFTs are so much more than just images, especially when we talk to businesses, because, even if I now work fully in Web3, but, I still think that we should, let's say, create a much easier access for businesses to get into this space. And so that is basically when we decided to, discuss, like, how can we just do this? And we went on and on and on. And then we decided, we said, okay, light bulb moment, like, we want everyone to own their own milestones forever. And, that is actually based and underpinned by something that I created last year, that is called the input economy. In Web2, it's very we're used to give away things for free. We're giving everything away, our data, our knowledge, our documents, our pitches, everything is away for free. Why? Because we always hope that tomorrow someone will purchase whatever we are trying to sell, or they will be convinced by how great we are, and therefore they will most likely become our customers. And that has brought us to actually, use and misuse the freemium models, for instance, or lead generation models, and much more. Whereas I believe that, Web3 has actually opened a brand new way of, looking at, how we perform what we do on a daily basis, because we can really monetize every single step that goes into the creation of an output. And that's why I called it the input economy. And that is pretty much very, very similar to, to how protocols work, monetize what they're doing. So it is very similar. And, that's basically when we decided to actually create, Niftyz in Niftyz Lite as well, because obviously we wanted businesses to, and content creators to come on board and easily start in creating NFTs, because I spoke to so many, we as a team, we spoke to over 200 different businesses, medium-sized businesses and even corporates. And their biggest problem is I don't want to actually get a wallet. I don't want to have anything to do with crypto. And even if we had a wallet, I mean, I would have mine, you would have yours. How is this going to be managed at a central level? So that is basically when we decided to create very simple way for businesses to create a wallet with their email address and a password. And we do all the Web3 things in the background. Obviously, our goal is to empower them to actually own their own, NFTs, keys and everything. And so we see this almost as a Web 2.5 step, something that they can do before they actually, migrate to our Web 3 platform, the premium platform, and they can just finally start using this, NFTs and Web3 in the correct way. But this is also a fantastic way for anyone to actually get started. Very simple and easy. No use of crypto, no use of wallets. So and I'm so happy that today actually we launched today. Hrish, and we already had our first client was just basically launched an event in Australia, and we received fantastic comments, so I'm just very excited.
And what do they, and would you mind telling the story of kind of, either this client or, what are some business use cases? Because the reason I'm asking is, as SuperWorld is a virtual world that's really focused on how do we bring utility using, immersive tech, Web3 and AI to real people in their real lives, whether they're business owners, whether they're, involved in their community, whether they're doing something as a hobby, et cetera, how do we enable them to get into Web3? And so some of these use cases that you're starting to see with maybe your light product, I think are interesting to our audience because they are interested in, understanding how they can use this technology, whether it's an NFT or just Web3 in general, to 100%. Do something that's beneficial to their business or their real life.
100%. So I would like to start perhaps from the definition that we give to NFTs. We look at NFTs as keys that unlock special content that is either stored on-chain or off-chain. And that also unlock beautiful places in the metaverse, potential opportunities for all of us. So when we're looking at NFTs from this point of view, then we see the reaction of many businesses, and they are just basically saying oh, wow, so does that mean that I can hide whatever I want behind this, I unlock this door and I see whatever I want behind this? It was yes. And that's why Niftyz as a platform actually is, meant to just make people redeem NFTs, the content of the NFT. So you can actually upload up to 3 documents or links on Niftyz, and then you can just basically set the content as private or public. So it's so that if you don't want to share it on OpenSea or on our gallery, you can do that. You can set it as transferable or soul bound, and then you can either send it to specific people or to everyone. Now, why am I saying this? Because this is also bringing a lot of different use cases. The client we had today, which is actually a legal tech firm with over 100 different consultants around the world, had an event, and they were actually looking to POP as a way to actually award them, make them hey, you have attended this event, right? Get our badge. But that use case was not good enough for them because they had slides, and they had they were doing a session about AI and legal, and so they had a drawing that they wanted to give to their attendees, and then they had their deck, and then they had like, you know, other material. And so Niftyz was perfect because, I mean, then they created the NFT and they added all this content behind, and then they downloaded the QR code that comes with the NFT, and they printed it on the table, put it on the table, and everybody basically, you know, scanned the QR code and accessed this, you know, NFT with an email and an address and a password. But this is just an example. You know, we are actually also collaborating with the Manchester Metropolitan University soon, and we are talking about you know, potentially, like, you know, adding the CVs of some of these students behind an NFT, you know, and also, I mean, potentially doing some other projects that they do, like, you know, and put their scores and their templates and their results behind that. It's like some sort of, like, you know, book that they are starting to collect. That's what it is, really. And we also have recruiters. We're going to launch a partnership soon with, I can say this, with Digital Gurus, which is a UK-based recruiter. And with them, we're going to have a lot of different use cases. We spent hours and hours brainstorming, and the team there, especially Ethan, a big shout out to Ethan, you know, is just an amazing recruiter. And he had a lot of ideas, like, you know, for instance, we can, you know, we could almost, like, you know, that's where I would like to go. Like, you know, if you have a database, you know, you can actually take parts of that database, you can store parts of that database into the NFT, and you can give access, you know, gated access to specific people to that database that changes over time. Now, this one could actually be dropped as an airdrop, of course, for new customer, but you could also monetize that through the premium platform. So you could monetize access to all of this data. So instead of, you know, using your customers for their own data, you can actually monetize your data in a much more different way. So, you know, I'm not reselling the data. I'm actually, you know, using my primary data, my first party data, and I'm actually just making sense of that data, aggregating in the right way, and then selling access to it. Now, this is actually smart business. And it's like, you know, also ethical business, which is very different from what we've seen so far in Web2 in many, many cases.
Got it. No, that's great. It's definitely, you know, opens a lot of business owners' eyes to what's possible. And you said education and, you know, other partnerships in that way. You know, what are your thoughts? And you mentioned it earlier, and maybe you can define it, on use cases for soulbound tokens. Like how do you describe those? And, you know, I think it's a newer concept for some listeners. So would love to hear your thoughts on that, as well as, you know, how can those be used by business owners in, you know, as differentiated from just normal NFTs or other use cases?
100%. Actually, we have another partnership that is going to come up soon. We are in the process of finalizing a few things. They're based in Asia, and they are basically vetting developers. So they also offer, they are an ed tech company, an education and tech company. So they provide courses for these developers, and then they vet them, and then they provide them with work opportunities, job opportunities around the world. And, you know, the idea here for soulbound token, the way we describe it is that they are not transferable to someone else. So, you know, if I say that I vetted this person, that I give them a certificate, they cannot transfer that certificate to their friends, for instance. And this is just one example. But we have another example that is also another partnership is going to come up. Sorry if I mention all of these things, but we've been working so hard for the past, you know, few months, and we just basically all these partnerships are going to come up in the next few weeks. So we are talking to an award company. As you can imagine, like, you know, there are so many awards. So in November, for instance, we were shortlisted as, you know, the most innovative NFT project in the UK. And then, of course, Super Rare won, but, you know, still, it was just nice. But it was organized by CTAM, which is, like, you know, quite a nice, very interesting, you know, reputable magazine, and Crypto AM, the subsidiary of CTAM. But what happened there is that I can tell you now that I've got, like, you know, they have been shortlisted. but perhaps there is an article, but is that really true? But what if actually they were going to issue an NFT and I would mint it, like right there at the event? Then it is actually something more interesting. And then of course you can make it soul bound, because I cannot transfer it to some other company. So that is basically like in an ideal how we explain this to businesses. We believe that the best way to explain things is to actually maybe make it with examples.
Yeah, that's a really awesome use case. Events or awards or certifications. You brought up education and job listings and things like that. I think those are really interesting ways that this technology can be used to, provide that verification for what someone is saying and what someone's received, and a way of kind of seeing their accolades. That's really cool. I curious about, as we're talking about brands and businesses, a really interesting concept is, the metaverse and Web3 enable brands to be able to, be created from scratch now, that can be more, metaverse native or Web3 native, and be able to, again, utilize these technologies in a way that a traditional brand wanting to get into Web3 might not be as well positioned to do. What are your thoughts on that? What are things that, if you were going to, if I put yourself in the shoes of a business or a brand, what are things that a brand or a business, if they're creating a product or, an event or anything, how do they think about becoming a Web3 native brand? And what would that mean for a brand like that maybe a Web2 brand misses out on?
Yeah, 100%. And I totally get the question is a bit, and it's a big issue, right? Because we, together with the team, every Wednesday, we actually issue what we call Web3 pills. So Muscano is actually my team. She researches the market, looks at different type of brands who are entering the Web3 space, and then we just basically research and write nice tweets about them. But it's not only for that reason that we're doing that. That is a way for us to do some competitors analysis, but also to be on top of things. And we're seeing a lot of very interesting use cases coming up. And of course, the first one is definitely, I'm Italian, I need to talk about Gucci, right? And it's just like super Gucci, and that is interesting because when we're looking at this kind of fashion brands, I always have a very strong opinion about this. I remember when I was working for Denso, for instance, I had a big fashion luxury brand that I was managing as a client. And I remember vividly that they were complaining, even if they were appearing on the second page of Vogue, right? Now, Gucci's always been very similar. From that perspective, right? They always look after their brands and where it is displayed. But then you look at it now, and you are seeing it on a website like OpenSea, where there is absolutely everything on that. And that for me is a change in, a shift in mindset. And I think that shift in mindset is very important. And that's the first thing that I think, Web2 brands who want to get into Web3 need to master, is that, understanding that this space is open to everyone, unless you actually want to create your walled garden, but we've got enough of walled gardens in Web2. So I think that, we just basically need to learn how to master, the open Web3. And that's the first thing. Then, of course, we need to look at the team and skills, right? Because we're always talking about advisors here, advisors there. Look at Porsche, right? That was a bad example. Something bad, really bad happened there. We will never know. But, a lot of people on social media, for instance, claimed, oh, it must be their advisors. But I mean, actually, and that's what we've been advocating for so many months. If you want to get into Web3, first you need to upskill your internal stakeholders and your employees. If you don't do that, you will never know what kind of questions you need to ask your advisors. And that is so true, not only for Web3, but also for any new technology that you want to integrate and implement into your business. And I know that because that is actually part of it. I've been integrating new technologies in businesses for all my life, my career of 22 years now, which is like, feels very long. And I think, it's just like, that is like, very, very, very important. And then the third one is like, for sure, I mean, do your own research and make sure that there is like, some sort of contingency plan in place as well, because things in this space go wrong and can go very wrong. And especially around brand reputation, so having like, very good PR team there in place, like, that is sparring, like, for you, like, in your defense is definitely very important, but it's also like, about the community. And I keep saying this all the time. A lot of Web2 brands underestimate the community element of Web3 because, I mean, they looked at their community were their customers, right? Before in the Web2 space. But now in the Web3 space, community needs to be built, and perhaps they are not even your customers. They can be, somebody just like, interested in your project. They're just coming by and just say, hi, it's in your Discord channel. And that is like, alien for a lot of brands. In the old school, like, in Web2. So I think it's all about like, back to mindset, right? Shift. Everything is connected.
Yeah.
So I hope I answered your question.
No, that's a really, really great set of answers to that question for a brand to think about. And what's the differentiation of getting into Web3 natively and or a Web2 brand? What would they have to change in terms of their mindset and their stakeholders and their ability to engage their community in a different way? So I think that's super powerful. And do you find that when you talk to brands, that's an easy conversation?
An easy conversation? I don't know about that, Hrish, actually.
Yeah.
I think, it's definitely, so what we know is that everybody wants to get into this metaverse, okay? Every single time we speak to a client, they always tell us about the metaverse. We need to master the metaverse. And I totally understand and get it, because it's just like, it's becoming a very busy space, and people are confused, and it could become very expensive for brands as well, right? To create their own assets and just, to create, of course, I mean, educate the team, get potential, like, external resources to support with that. It's not easy. But obviously, we always need to say, like, we need to tell them, like, first start with the basics. And the basics for us are like, NFTs. If you understand how to master the NFTs and how to create assets, how to actually, understand this technology, then it's so much easier for you to get into this metaverse and understand how to also, like, start monetizing all these assets. But there is another element here, and that is like, the business and revenue model, which cannot be underestimated, because a lot of businesses at the moment are just basically still thinking in a Web2 way. Got my e-commerce, I've got my database, I'm monetizing whatever I have. But in Web3, it doesn't work like that. So you need to learn that, if you want to get into a metaverse, you need to start gamifying a lot of the actions that your customers are doing on your platform right now. And perhaps not all your customers are qualified to get into the metaverse, because we know that there is like, an age bracket, there are so many, restrictions at the moment. Hopefully soon will be lifted, but it comes with adoption. So I think it's so important that they understand that there are certain steps that needs to be taken before they can actually fully succeed into this, into this metamorphosis as a Web3 brand. And it's interesting, yes, it's a good discussion, but again, it goes back to education. And that's why, by the way, we created a fully funded program for Web3 called Web3 Open Innovation Program. And we are basically going to start that in March, and it's going to be for all sorts of brands, corporates, small and medium sized companies who actually want to learn more about Web3. We're going to give them like a lot of very good knowledge, because I want to tap into my experience also as an educator in this space, and just hopefully do something good for everyone.
Yeah, no, I think that's super important, and we're working on a variety of things to kind of educate as well. And I think the whole industry benefits when consumers are much more aware of what are all the benefits of this, and what does Web3 even mean, and what is the metaverse and things like that. So there's some hurdles that we have to get through. I'd love to think about and understand, as you see this evolving. I mean, the last half of last year, I would say, was a little tumultuous in the Web3 space. Fingers crossed, I think we're getting some more stability now, and things are, again, developing, and there's a lot of excitement and a lot of interest on the institutional side, definitely much better than there was in the 2018 crypto winter. What do you think are some of the things that as consumers have gone through the last 6 months, what are some of the things that you think that it is really important for those people, the people in the mainstream audience that see some of those stories? What's going to get them excited about this? What do you think is going to get them to have confidence in this space in general?
Well, first of all, seeing other brands that are going to join the space, reputable brands, and they really need to see other use cases. And that's why we're here as well, right? We are not going to promote just an image. I keep repeating this, and I know it can be controversial, but I still believe that NFTs is so much more than just an image. And I think, when people will realize the full potential of NFTs, they will finally realize that they can do so many things also on the metaverse with these things. I think, the two are so related that, they cannot, they have to walk together, hand in hand together. Obviously, we've seen a lot of problems, of course, in the market. We had, you said tumultuous, to say the least. And of course, that is again down to education, right? For crypto exchanges, like, keep your coins in your cold wallet, just as a nice lesson from last year. But of course, then of course, with regards to other projects, do your own research. I always say, like, when there is a new project, there is a lot of hype. Really take a look at what has been done, because it's just like, it's so easy to be swept away by all your friends and other people you know on social media, on Twitter, like, hey, there is this project, there is big hype around that project. But be careful, because not all the time that is the case. And you just basically need to take a look. Is the team docs and docs? What are they building? Are they saying that, who are their backers, who are their investors? Because it's also very important to understand who they are. That is why I'm saying all the time, do your own work. But for those ones who actually are in Web 2 and want to get into Web 3, I always say, like, just start upskilling your own people, and don't believe any so-called advisors or experts in this space. Because at the end of the day, you will need, of course, there are a lot of great people in this space, but sometimes it's difficult to recognize who's good or who's bad, especially for those clients who just basically are on LinkedIn most of the time, because Twitter is not their space, LinkedIn is their space, and they just basically see a lot of content coming their way. It's very difficult. especially when these people, so-called experts, don't have any use cases to back up, what they're saying. So instead, I would say, go to, people who are doing things in this industry, ask them, ask you guys, ask us, ask, people who actually have a product. Or, it's just like, because we know what it means to actually go through all of that iteration, speaking to customers, doing all the technical stuff behind, and making sure that, everything works well in the end, hopefully. So yeah, to answer your question, I think, it's more about we need to see more use cases, concrete use cases, more players, that are coming up. Of course, more mature products as well, because last year it was still a lot of building, right? This year, I think, is the year where we're going to start seeing more concrete application dApps going to come out. The infrastructure layer as well is getting better and better, more mature. So, I really think that there would be a lot of shifting this year that is going to be done.
Yeah, that's I think that's a really a good assessment of what's coming and how I think the next year or two is going to be versus the last, even 2-3 years, as projects are becoming more concrete and tangible, and use cases are becoming more known, and brands are getting on board. So I think that's a really smart way of thinking about it. One question as well that I'm also curious about is, since you have a very global kind of background and you're involved in a few different places in the world, what are your thoughts on the different parts of the world? Again, SuperWorld's a world, so we're very interested in different parts of the world. Where do you think in the world right now are the hot spots for the metaverse or Web3? And how do you think about that? Why is that? And what do you notice about those places? Is there more business conversations easier to be had, or more investors, or kind of what's the thought?
I'm sure that you will agree with me that there are a few hotbeds. Singapore, definitely one of them. Dubai, we keep hearing more and more. I'm actually going to go there in 10 days time, just to see it, see it myself. By myself, I need to see this hype.
Yeah, I was just there.
Yeah. Great. I keep hearing a lot of things about Dubai, that it feels like, Silicon Valley, 20 years ago, everybody's on the street is either a startup or an investor. I just keep hearing which sounds very exciting, to be honest with you, because that's what we're missing in Europe. That's what we are missing here. And I think, that except for Crypto Valley, where, we just see a lot of stuff going on, very active. But again, where things are done is, it's mainly East. And of course, the US, we got a completely different ecosystem there. But I can talk about Europe. And, I was actually, as I mentioned at the beginning, Sweden. I mean, there are some very good cases, but it's very quiet. And even, for instance, my students are struggling to find internships in blockchain and Web3 companies based in Sweden. So that is a bit of an issue. Then, of course, we got Italy. Italy is a hotbed of Web3 companies. Not many people know, because, they just don't know how to advertise themselves very well. I mean, that's criticism for some of the, it's reality. I'm Italian, I can say that. But and I think that's a little bit of an issue there. But the talent is so great. I mean, we got from some fantastic developers. We got fantastic people working in that space. And then of course we got the UK. The UK is pretty much I mean, I live here, right? And I know the guys from Non-Origin very well, because we were sitting in the same office when they started their Non-Origin back in 2018, more or less. It was just, I could see James and Andy on their desks, stand-up desks, and they were just we were talking about art. I still remember that. And they helped me a lot as well at the beginning with digital oracles. And now we actually opened a Manchester Blockchain Alliance together with them and Sequence, another UI UX agency. So we are very close. And I think that, Manchester, we did our launch event 3 weeks ago, and we had 140 people in the room, and every single person actually had something to do with Web3.
Mm-hmm.
And I've not seen similar numbers in London, like, for an event that is so young. You see what I mean? Like, we got
Mm-hmm.
Crypto Mondays. I got a very dear friend of mine who runs Crypto Mondays, and she wrote something about, like, on LinkedIn, that they had a 5th anniversary, and they had, like, God knows how many people, 200-300 people in 5 years. I mean, in Manchester, it's like 140 people for after, like, just the launch. It's
Mm-hmm.
incredible, right?
Yeah.
So I can definitely see this as a hotbed. And then apart from that, Lisbon has got a fantastic ecosystem. I've been there so many times, and every single time I'm so surprised. Plus the weather is nice, and the
Yeah.
food. I mean, let's talk about the food.
I love Lisbon. Yeah, it's amazing.
So it's just like, it's very good. But yeah, what about you? What do you think? Do you see similar trends?
Yeah, SuperWorld's very global by nature. We are a world, as I said, and so
Yeah.
always in touch with people from everywhere that are entering the space. I think that what's really interesting is that there's definitely places in the world like Dubai, like
Yeah.
Miami, like Crypto Valley,
Yeah.
like Lisbon, um, that are definitely Singapore, that are, definitely, much more open to these technologies on a regulatory
Oh yeah.
standpoint, on a government standpoint in general. And it seems that certain events, let's say of the last 6 months, didn't affect certain places in the world as much as maybe they affected other places in the world,
100%.
in terms of like just sentiment. And so, I think that can always happen in different places, depending on the event. So I think sometimes events can be more localized in this ecosystem.
Yeah.
I mean, we are global by nature in this ecosystem, but I also think that, depending on the other kind of characteristics of a place, some of those things can be buffered a bit because the government is so supportive of Web3, or
Yeah.
there's, investors that have just, created a critical mass of interest in a certain area, or that the society itself is more oriented towards, whether it's gaming or the metaverse or crypto. So I think there's kind of different aspects of what makes a place interesting. But yeah, we definitely see that in terms of what we're doing. I mean, with SuperWorld, we have several showcase locations that we're working on. Miami, Dubai, Riyadh, are just three of the kind of the starting points. But I think that each one of those hotspots you named are great kind of starting points for us, to start looking at ways to collaborate with the local ecosystems. And I think that as those ecosystems become more known, and we're trying to do that, help people
Yeah.
create events and create immersive content and Web3 integrations in all these places. I think as that happens, the beauty of, I think, what we're doing is we're so much more interconnected than we were before. And so, as people are traveling, and so many of us are nomads or, traveling, that sentiment can get carried to the positive sentiment, I think, can equally get carried to places in the world where they're still kind of new to the space. So it's kind of like what you were saying. I think Crypto Mondays, Luke Kerner is a good friend of mine. The community that they've created all over the world is very powerful. And I think there's other such communities that also kind of spread this message. So we're very excited about working with them and those communities to help expand the message.
And I think, Hrish, you actually touched on something about investment as well. That was interesting, because that is an area that I actually am very passionate about, since, I'm a woman, like, working Web3, like, seeking investment. It's always a little bit of a hurdle, like, but I can definitely see, like, also why some ecosystems like, Dubai and like Singapore, like, even Hong Kong, are still thriving or are thriving with regards to attracting talent. It's that because they don't have fear of investing in, the unknown, let's say. Let's call it the unknown, but now it's a bit more known. But they don't have any fear to actually, like, invest in projects that could potentially improve, their lives, their ecosystem, their physical worlds. Whereas in Europe, we are always like, so, and this is based on research. I'm not talking because of, I like to talk. I've done a lot of research around this. In Europe, we're definitely more risk averse, when it comes, especially like, we always like, want to invest in something that we know or that someone referred, to us. And that is a problem because, I mean, especially when you have an ecosystem of investors, a hotbed of investors who look exactly the same like each other, and they get referred people that also look like each other. So there is like, this real problem. And I think, we need to take more risks because no risks, no rewards. And I think this is like, always the message I give to every single investor. I meet at these kind of events, I speak at panels, it's just like I always, tell everybody, please, just do more research, right? On, and just trust sometimes, like, not only what you hear, but also what you see, because there are a lot of very amazing teams and projects out there that don't get a chance.
Yeah, that's a great, just be not afraid of exploring and learning. I think that's a really great mentality. To close out, I got two questions just to kind of
Go, Hrish.
learn more about what drives you. If there's anyone you could meet and you could meet for lunch in alive now or in history, who would you want to meet and what would you want to learn from this person?
One day, when I started the accelerator Brink and Animoca Brands, I actually heard Yatsu talking. Like, it was, and then I saw him live, and he's the right person I would like to take out for lunch, because the way he thinks about data and about the future of the metaverse, and he's a big supporter, he's very big supporter of metaverse for sure. But also, like, it's just in general, like, decentralization. And I think that kind of conversation would be very interesting, I think. Definitely.
Yeah, it's awesome. I just saw him and had lunch with him a couple of weeks ago.
And there you go. There you go.
And he is a very, very smart and global thinker in general. And I learn a lot about the open metaverse and a lot of the I love his analogies is what I tell him. Is just is that when he's explaining something, I borrow some of those. But yeah, very, very happy to have people like Yat in the ecosystem that are so supportive. So that's really great. And then I'll ask you one last question. Since we're SuperWorld and again, we cover the surface of the earth, and you can acquire geospatial virtual real estate covering the earth, and then again activate monetization by building things in those areas. And so you can really find places in the world that are special to you, and you can acquire those places as virtual real estate and then build there. Where in the world, if you had a place in the world that you could buy virtual real estate in SuperWorld, what speaks to you? Where would you want to build, and what would you want to build?
Can I choose two places?
Sure.
Rather than one?
Yeah, and the average person picks about 15, just so you know.
That's good. I mean, I thought it's like, one. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to pick 15, to be honest with you. But to keep it short, I would like a summer holiday and a winter holiday then. It's just like I definitely love the Stockholm archipelago. I think it's absolutely fantastic in summer. So go around there with the boat. That's the most amazing experience that you can have. Quiet, beautiful, relaxing. So I definitely like to build something there. a nice chalet, right? A nice stuga, as they say, right? By the beach. And then, of course, Greece. I mean, oh my God. I mean, you need a summer destination, right? And a winter, actually more wintry destination, Greece. I mean, Santorini. I went there once, and it was absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I would definitely like to actually go there and build a better airport for them as well, if I could, because I mean the airport is quite teeny tiny. So yeah, no, absolutely, this it's so much fun. I'm really looking forward to actually purchasing my land on my Santorini and my Stockholm island.
You should do it. Every plot unpurchased is 0.1 ether, so it's a good time to
There you
acquire
go. There
virtual
you
real
go.
estate in SuperWorld.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
those are
Yeah.
great stories. I always enjoy hearing the stories of people
Yeah.
and why they're interested in certain places. There's so much to the world, and it's great to hear, the places
Oh
that you
yeah.
love. So I really
Yeah.
enjoyed the conversation we had
Oh,
today, and thank you so much
same.
for being on the Building a Better World podcast. Really excited about all the things that you're doing to build a better world and to support the ecosystem and help, more people get on board. So thank you so much. I guess I'll ask, as a
Thank
closing,
you.
what's the best place or places that people can find you online? How can people learn more about your work?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure that you can paste my my LinkedIn in there, but of course it's niftyz.io. You can go there, and you will find our LinkedIn and Twitter and everything else. So, a Discord channel. So just feel free to go there, and everybody who actually comes to the platform can create a free NFT. So, and that is when, is something, again, based on our value of inclusivity, we want everyone to actually create. So please come create your NFTs. We're looking forward to actually seeing new use cases, and join us if you want to learn a little bit more about the Web3 Open Innovation Program as well in March. And we're gonna have more anyway coming soon. But thank you so much, Hrish. I think this was an amazing conversation. I'm so happy to actually meet other fantastic people in this ecosystem, and thank you for the lovely chat, really.
Thank you. Thanks so much. We'll be in touch. Talk soon.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.